In every dimension, there is a Spider-Man. And in every dimension, a Spider-Man is willing to do whatever it takes to do the right thing, no matter the cost. But what if there was a dimension where there was no spider bite, and what should have been Peter Parker's destiny to become the greatest superhero was squashed before him? What would become of Peter Parker in this dimension? In the comic, Peter Parker, the Amazing Shutterbug. As we start the story, Peter Parker is on a school field trip to General Tektronics. His origin is supposed to be the usual rundown where he gets bit by a radioactive spider at a radioactive spider exhibit, where a bunch of spiders are in cases except for one which would inevitably bite Peter while tying his shoe. However, in this dimension, Flash Thompson knocks Peter out of the way, which leads Flash and some of the other bullies to stomp on the spider and continue on their field trip, changing Peter's destiny forever. So everything afterwards plays out fairly normal. No spider powers or fighting wrestlers for money or fighting villains. He'd just be a normal teenager in high school, getting picked on just for existing and wishing he could graduate sooner. And eventually the day'd come where he'd finally graduate. But before leaving to celebrate with his aunt and uncle, he'd have to make a stop first to get an old science project before one of the teachers would throw it out. Upon re-entering the school to get his project, he'd find his project, but Flash and the underlings followed him into the building because they figured since they're gonna miss picking on Peter, they might as well do it one last time to get it out of their system. So Peter, really wanting to leave unscathed, steals a battery from one of his classmates' projects and throws it at the sprinkler to distract Flash and the other bullies long enough so he can get out okay. But before he can make it, he gets sucker punched right in the face. Later, when Peter gets back to the car embarrassed, he tells his uncle to just drive because he's ready to leave this all behind him. And driving away, Flash Thompson, still at the school, throws Peter's science project in the trash. Years later, Peter attends at Empire University, doing really well for himself, since Peter thought if destiny wouldn't come looking for him, he'd seek it out himself. So through a lot of hard work, he began to develop his own drones. And one day after finishing them up, he'd get a call from Aunt May asking if he'd be free later, because she's going on a date with Uncle Ben, but needs a new dress from a place called Gamble's. So Peter says that after she's done shopping, he can walk a block over and take her to a coffee place he likes. Later, Peter tests out the drones, and they work marvelously, as Peter even catches a glimpse of the hero Hyperion fighting a G-list supervillain. As Peter continues to watch the fight, he notices it's right outside Gamble's, the building Aunt May said she'd be in, as Hyperion throws a sign right towards it. Immediately, Peter would rush over to Gamble's on foot, horrified, as the building would turn out to be in complete ruin, and Aunt May sadly died in the wreckage. Months later, Peter would drop out of college and try to get a job at the Daily Bugle to take care of Uncle Ben by recording Hyperion's every move using his drones. Even though the pay would be next to nothing, it still counted for Peter. Months after working for the Bugle, Peter and Uncle Ben's relationship began to fall apart as they do nothing but fight anymore. Along with this, Peter would also risk his life time and time again to take pictures of crazy fights in New York, like today, almost about to be eaten alive by deadly nanobugs. Until at the very last second, Hyperion would swoop in to stop the deadly nanobugs with his freeze breath, leading Hyperion to fight off a huge version of Ultron, spreading the bugs all over the city. After stopping Ultron in mere seconds, Hyperion would then fly off to fight the next big villain, while Peter would go back inside the Bugle, unaware that Hyperion missed one last nanobug. So walking back to his desk, everyone would ask Peter what happened, until out of nowhere, one of his coworkers' heads gets sliced off in front of him. Quickly, chaos ensues as the workers run in fear as the nanobug explodes several parts of the floor. Peter, bracing for cover, thinks to himself that he has to be brave and he has to do something to stop this nanobot. So Peter rushes to the break room and puts a fire extinguisher inside of the microwave to give workers inside cover to escape, as Peter shouts for those still inside to get down and make a break for the stairs. So once everyone had escaped, Peter would devise a plan to kill the nanobug by attaching an exposed cord to an umbrella and using himself as bait. Getting his timing just right, he'd lure the nanobot towards him and then trap the nanobot inside the electrified umbrella and try to beat it to death. But in the process, Peter would end up being too late, getting bitten by the nanobot. Once infected, Peter's body would instantly start to sprout arms resembling that of a spider. And realizing he could turn into one of those things at any moment and kill anyone still in the building, he'd begin to run towards a nearby window, as he'd burst out of the window so he could sacrifice himself to save everyone inside of the building, saying to himself that he finally found his purpose in the end, to help people. And all it took was a weird-ass spider bite to bring it out, ending the story. I really love this story because Peter didn't really need powers to be a hero. It was always just inside of him this entire time from the jump, because it's not just the powers that make the hero, but also the man behind the mask. And I kind of feel like modern Spider-Man comics don't really capture this as well as they used to, like this comic managed to do so incredibly well. It's also really kind of sad how in one Thor comic, where Peter Parker is featured in, it manages to capture the essence of Peter Parker's character to a T, more than the Amazing Spider-Man series has in like 2 decades almost. It's crazy. But anyways, I hope y'all like this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.